Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for joining our webinar today and for your interest in this webinar. So it's a pleasure to host you all today. I'm actually James Hall from Ramco. I'm based out of Melbourne, and I'll be hosting today's webinar on the payroll transformation, the role of people, process and technology in large payroll transformation projects. We have quite a large number of registrations today, over 600 from all around the world. Mostly from HR and payroll professionals, also technology practitioners from a diverse group of industries. So before we start off with the webinar, I'd like to mention that all the participants, if you can go to the next slide, will be in mute mode. What we'll do is have a 15-minute question and answer session at the end. For any questions there, and throughout the session there's also a chat box on the left hand side there where you can enter any questions that you might have throughout the session. If you've got any technical issues, one of the first things to do is to restart your GoToWebex session. That's the first one. If you've got any further issues, you can actually enter in a technical request into the chat session there, and there'll be someone there who will hope to be able to help you on that as well. So we'll move forward to the next one. We've actually got two speakers on the panel here today who've joined us for this session on payroll transformation. So the first is Valerie Flight. So Valerie is the head of the payroll at Lendlease, and Lendlease is a large construction company that operates in multiple countries around the Asia Pacific region. Valerie has a very strong background in payroll and HR, including HRIS and payroll systems, especially around implementations, and as a functional expert also in the payroll transformations. So Valerie has previously worked with Credit Suisse and the Macquarie Group as well, and really enjoys all the facets of leading teams and really transforming payrolls around the world and the country. So our second speaker today is Rajiv Singh from Ramco Systems, and Ramco is actually a pioneer in bringing a unified platform and path-breaking innovation for workforce management, right from onboarding to position management, all the day-to-day transactions, payroll, exit management, and really focusing on the innovation, compliance, and we'll provide that real modern payroll experience. Rajiv has approximately 2 decades of experience with Ramco, and currently he heads up our delivery section as the VP of the Oceania region head for all deliveries across the payroll digital transformation business. So moving to the subject of today's webinar, we are going to be discussing payroll transformation and all the associated complexities, what role people, processes and technology really plays in a successful payroll transformation. So what I'd like to do is to invite Valerie to start off today's session. And Valerie is actually, as previously mentioned, has handled many, many different payroll transformations. So Valerie, over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, James, for the introduction. I just want to say hi to everyone, and thanks for Ramco for asking me to come in and talk about payroll transformations. I guess the initial starting point is obviously looking at, your legacy payroll landscape and its challenges. That's usually the reason why people look at doing a massive, big payroll transformation. It's usually around their legacy issues that they're facing around payroll and the challenges that we face within the payroll community and I guess as a payroll professional. So I'm going to talk through some of those issues. The first one obviously being multiple legacy systems. So in most organisations you'll find that there are either one or multiple legacy systems that are around, and they've been around for a very long time. Payroll's not one of those functions that tends to be looked at unless there's an actual problem from a technology perspective. So obviously having multiple legacy systems or a really old payroll system can hinder the capacity for an organisation to scale up or scale down adequately, as well as requiring, a lot of manual workarounds and manual processes to support the actual payroll process itself, especially in a complex environment. The next point is obviously multi-country payroll challenges. So in quite a lot of the organisations I've worked in, we've looked at payroll from a multi-organisational perspective, so whether that's regional or global, and obviously trying to find some standardisations, and usually it's around reporting and standard reporting that you can pick out from all of your countries. So that's obviously another challenge when it comes to reporting up to your board or doing senior management reporting across multiple geographies and making sure that it's in the same format in each location, so that the information you're providing to your organisation is in a standardised format. I guess one of the other challenges, and obviously this is something that impacts, I guess, a lot of industries within Australia, is your enterprise agreements, your awards and your contractual obligations. So making sure that your payroll system can actually deal with the complexities of those, and obviously making sure that it's compliant under all of those rules and regulations that you need to adhere to. The complexities of obviously standard reporting across multiple payroll systems. So I kind of touched on that with your multi-country challenges. You know, nowadays payroll's requested to do more and more reporting, and that's across different locations and different reasons. So quite often we'll be asked around headcount, but we'll also be asked around things like, you know, overpayments, underpayments, compliance, the types of payments that we're making to our organisation, as well as, I guess, the total gross values of our payrolls across multiple regions. And then obviously with that comes the complexity around foreign payments and making sure it's in one unified currency, so that you can kind of compare how your payrolls are reacting around the world. Manual processing is a big one. So obviously one of the big pluses of doing a payroll transformation is to try and eliminate as much manual processing as you possibly can. Try to automate as much as you can within your business. Obviously, the more manual touch points there are, things going on. And obviously, the more manual touching of data by employees increases that risk that you have of making sure that your payrolls are actually compliant. So obviously, one of the big pluses of doing that is obviously looking at introducing as much automation as you possibly can to eliminate those issues from happening. Single touch payroll compliance, as well as, I guess, third party reporting. So obviously single touch payroll in Australia was a big driver for payroll vendors and, I guess, payroll systems to look at how they're doing things. And now that we are doing reporting directly to the ATO on a pay event basis, that's obviously brought attention to a lot of organisations around their payroll system and how accurate that payroll is and how it's been set up to ensure that we're 100% compliant when we are reporting to these third-party bodies. Now that obviously you know, is a really important fact, and it's a big driver to ensuring that your payrolls have been set up. So a lot of organisations would have reviewed their payrolls as part of the whole FTP implementation to ensure that what they're currently doing is absolutely 100% spot on and accurate. Managing multiple payroll vendors. So, yep, I've had the pleasure of having to do that in multiple of my companies, of having to deal with multiple outsourced payroll providers. Obviously, you know, vendor management is a huge piece, and it's something that a lot of payroll managers don't even think about when they take on their payroll roles, is the amount of vendor management you need to do. Obviously, having one payroll platform or one payroll vendor doing your payroll brings a lot of benefits. You can build a really strong relationship with that one vendor and also ensure that you are getting a consistent amount of service. The level of service is the same across your organisation. Obviously, when you're dealing with multiple payroll vendors, the type of service that you get can vary amongst vendors, but it also makes it really challenging to build a consistent and, I guess, a really strong relationship, especially when you're dealing with a lot of vendors rather than just one. And then standardisation of business process. So quite often when you're looking at companies that are in multiple regions or have a global presence, one of the big draw cards, I guess, of doing a payroll transformation is to try and standardise business processes as much as possible. Obviously, there will always be the tax and legislation differences between countries, but generally what you want to try and aim for is that your business process internally is the same regardless of which country you're actually dealing with. So that whole standardisation of business processes actually makes it easier for your payroll team to also be able to do their roles effectively. So I guess some of the big drivers from a payroll transformation, and I guess these are drivers that I've seen across my career as I've gone through these payroll transformations. I guess the first one is obviously compliance. So that's a huge one, and it's usually one of the most important ones that one of the most important drivers that you have when you go into these payroll transformations. So compliance covers everything from obviously your legislation, your tax, your regulatory body compliance, but also think about it from an internal policy perspective and also think about it from a risk perspective. So unfortunately for payroll, we are a high-risk area or a high-risk function in a lot of organisations, and compliance looks at that risk factor. So what you want to try and do as part of your payroll transformation, and one of the big drivers, is to try and reduce the risk factor within payroll. So that all comes down to ensuring that you've got a payroll system that is fully compliant, can adjust with the changes in regulations, can scale up and scale down very easily. The other piece to kind of back that up is obviously the automation. So obviously the more automated your payroll system is, the more integrations you've got between your HR system and your payroll system, or your payroll system and your finance system, the less chances you are of being non-compliant from a risk perspective. So obviously, the more hand touching there is of the payroll data, the more chances you are of being non-compliant or of having errors come through. Controls. So one of the big key drivers for me is the controls, and that's really to mitigate the amount of risk that you have within your payroll. So being able to use that automation in a really smart way, things such as, email notifications when payrolls are due to be approved, when payrolls haven't been approved based on timelines and deadlines, ensuring that you're staying on top of all of the payroll processing to ensure that you are 100% compliant. That comes down to the controls that you put in. So obviously part of that control is also how you set up your security access for your payroll team, ensuring that there's a clear segregation of duties between different team members. But also, I guess, when you're looking at those controls, just ensuring that you don't create bottlenecks, so that if somebody is actually out on leave or whatnot, that you find that you can't actually process your payroll because you've locked it down so tightly from a control perspective, it actually makes it not usable or unusable to a certain degree. So controls are really important, especially when you're looking at, doing a full transformation and having multiple team members looking after different parts of your payroll process. Then obviously there's a scalability perspective. So a lot of organisations are obviously in a growth part at the moment. So, one of the things that an organisation will look at is from a technology point of view is how quickly they can scale up and scale down, especially when you are looking to move into new locations, or you're looking to create new entities, or you're actually looking to buy entities and merge them into your existing company. So scalability is a massive big driver from a payroll transformation perspective. Obviously, standardisation, and that's a big plus from a payroll processing team perspective. So the more standardisation you can have across your processes, the easier it is to process your payroll. If you have different processes for different parts of your business, that's when it creates complexity that doesn't need to be there. So again, another driver from a payroll transformation perspective is being able to standardise your payroll processes across your locations, as well as your geographies around the world. And then I guess the last piece, and for me, I kind of left it last because obviously from a payroll processing perspective, it's something that an organisation will look at, and it's obviously cost reduction. So, it is a big driver for organisations to look at cost, and obviously managing multiple systems and vendors has a cost attached to that. So obviously moving across to one platform through a payroll transformation, and bringing in that automation and those controls will obviously have a cost reduction to your business. So things like obviously your vendor costs, as well as obviously headcount savings as well. So I guess what I wanted to touch upon is expectations from a payroll transformation perspective. So when I go into these, I guess I've got a set amount of expectations that I expect to get from a payroll transformation, and I've tried to make sure that they're aligned to the business benefits that you get from a new payroll system as well. So obviously the first one and the most important one is obviously the adherence to complex compliance and statutory obligations. So that's always an expected. If a payroll system can't support us from a compliance and statutory obligation perspective, then it's not going to be the system that we look to implement within the organisation. So that's key and critical to ensuring that you do have a very successful payroll transformation. The last thing you want to do is go live with a new payroll system that is not compliant or meeting the statutory obligations within the countries that you're processing in. The second one's obviously the ability to scale up and scale down in a complex payroll environment. Now, not all businesses will have complex payroll environments. What usually adds to the complexity is around your statutory laws within each of the locations that you're dealing with. That's where the complexity in most payroll environments works. Obviously, being able to scale up and scale down in terms of buying new companies or establishing new entities is obviously a big plus, as well as obviously, you know, in some conditions and in some organisations, they'll be looking to actually scale down their businesses at different points in time. And obviously, you want your payroll system to be able to move quite flexibly between those two. Unlocking the power of payroll data. So this one's quite an interesting thing because payroll's never been, I guess, one of the big players at the table when it comes to reporting and from a senior management perspective. And I guess with the highlights being on payroll recently, and, you know, we're seeing more and more payroll headlines, I guess, in the newspaper and in the news around organisations not doing the right thing. This is where the power of your payroll data becomes quite critical. So being able to make better decisions on a faster base, but also being able to pull out reports whenever requested to, without having to, you know, do a multiple amounts of VLOOKUPs and trying to merge different bits of data into to be able to provide that information to your business is critical. Obviously, controls to ensure that compliance of the payroll. So again, you know, my expectation is that we can build the controls in place within our payroll systems that will allow us to ensure that we are 100% compliant at all points in time. In each of my payroll transformations, what I've tended to do is to take actually our internal and external audit reports that were previously done on payroll and have a look at what the comments were around the controls points and make that a driving factor when we're looking at a new payroll platform. So, you know, that is one of the best starting points when you're looking at what controls to build into your payroll team. Also have a look at the pain points that your current payroll team are going through and try to build in the controls to eliminate those pain points going forward. Obviously, the big thing is accurate payroll reporting and payment. So this is like a not negotiable. So, you know, one of the biggest things is every employee that you pay comes into work expecting that they're going to get paid on time and they're going to be paid accurately. No one comes to work for free, as much as we'd love to, you know, it's not the reality of it. So obviously, you know, this is a not negotiable expectation from a payroll transformation or a payroll platform. The expectation from me, and I would assume from any payroll professional, would be that there is accurate payroll reporting to all of your statutory bodies, as well as any third parties, as well as obviously your payments to those organisations, as well as your employees. And then obviously the reduction of manual intervention in your payroll process. So, you know, one of the things, you don't do a payroll transformation to take what the existing world is into the new world. When you go into these, you really need to go in with the mindset that things are going to change. If you don't want to change and you want your new system to behave exactly like your current systems are, then you're probably not ready to actually do a payroll transformation. One of the biggest pluses of going into doing a payroll transformation is it's your opportunity as a payroll professional to actually build a system pretty much from the ground up and look at all the current pain points and manual processes that you do and ensure that you can eliminate those in your new environment that you're looking to implement. So that's really critical. I mean, otherwise I kind of question why you would do a payroll transformation if the basis is to go with what you've got today and replicate that in the new world. The ability for the business to be a partner, the ability for payroll to be a partner to the business by being able to extract complex reporting. So this is a huge one for me. I've gone into every organisation I've worked in to pretty much try and make payroll a partner. So that means engaging and obviously building those relationships up, but also showing that we can actually provide some really valuable data to the business to make those decisions along the way. And then last but not least, is to provide the payroll team with a tool that enables them to perform their roles at the highest quality. So obviously, you know, one of the pain points, and it's usually a grumbling with most payroll teams, is that the system is a bit clunky or the system doesn't behave in the way that they would hope. So, you know, obviously a payroll transformation is a great opportunity to get your payroll team together in terms of ensuring that the tool that you're actually implementing or that you're building enables them to perform their role at their highest of qualities. And one of the hardest things, I guess, from a payroll manager will be to take your payroll team on that journey and get them to think broadly across that, rather than think about what they do today and wanting exactly what they do today. Unfortunately, a lot of payroll practitioners, we've become comfortable in what we do, and so therefore, it's a bit scary with the unknown when you're going into implementing a new payroll system. So obviously, software and vendor selection is a big part of your payroll transformation, and as a starting point. So I guess I've got some tips and things that I look out for when I'm selecting a software or a vendor, and I feel that there are important things that you need to consider. The first one, obviously, is the software suitable for your business and the industry that you're part of? So, there's a lot of technology out there. It's moving at a really fast pace. But one of the underlying questions is it actually suitable to the type of business that we do? So look at the complexity of your business, look at how your business is structured, and ensuring that your software actually enables you to support that business throughout its journey. Is the vendor's culture and values aligned to your own organisation values? Now, you might actually ask why this is an important part for me, but having said that, your implementation and your payroll transformation is only the start of the journey. You then have a long relationship with that vendor post-go live, so it's really important to make sure that your vendor's culture and values are aligned to your own organisation's values. It will make the partnership piece a lot easier in the longer run. And I guess the next question is, what is the vendor able to provide that will allow your payroll to be first class and completely compliant and tightly controlled? So, get your payroll vendor or software provider to provide you with a full listing of everything that they believe makes them compliant, and I guess how they ensure that the controls are built into their payroll system when you're looking at that selection process. And what is the vendor's roadmap with their payroll technology, and what advances are they making with automation and product development? One of the things that you don't want to do is obviously bring in a payroll piece of software or a vendor that doesn't actually have a very clear roadmap in terms of what they're looking at gaining, I guess, in terms of what they're looking to produce in the longer run. You want to know that they're keeping up with the technology, they're keeping up with the automation, the robotics, and ensuring, I guess, that they have a clear indication of how they're going to implement those things along the way and how they stay up to date with what's happening within the payroll space. What support model do they have post-go live, and do they believe in partnership and transparency? So this is a bit of a weird one, and people might go, why would you do that? But, your support model post-go live is critical. So what you'll find is, as you're implementing a new payroll platform, you have a huge payroll project team, you have a lot of support. What's that support like once you go live? So you won't have your BAs, you won't have your PMs, you won't have your developers on site helping you out. So what does that support model look like post go live? And obviously partnership and transparency. So to make a payroll transformation successful, there needs to be a belief on both sides, the vendor side and obviously from a client side, that you do have a full partnership, that this is going to be a long-term partnership, and obviously that there's full transparency between the two parties to ensuring that your payroll transformation is going to be successful. What experience have they had with implementing complex payrolls? So this is quite interesting, because quite often what you'll do is you will get the salespeople into you pitching all of the things that they do. But my suggestion is, once you start going through that process, ask them to have their operational people come in and talk through how they manage those complex payrolls, the experience that they've had implementing other complex payrolls. You do your reference checks, obviously, try and do reference checks with clients that have similar payrolls to you to really get a good feel for what they can deliver on that side. And what benefits can they bring to your organisation? So I guess you go into these software and vendor selections with a very clear picture of what you want, but it's also important to find out what they can bring to your organisation. So, it's important for the vendor to be able to tell you exactly what benefits they think they can bring into your organisation, especially after finding out what your organisation is actually like. And that's an important part, because there could be things that you haven't even thought of for your own business that you might think, actually, that's an actual big benefit for us that we hadn't thought of previously. Or you might go, okay, it's not a benefit at this point in time when we're implementing, but it's definitely something that's going to benefit us in the long run. And then also make sure that you're very clear on what you require for your organisation and understand what are not negotiables for you. So one of the biggest things is, you go into these software selection and vendor selection meetings and RFSs and RFPs, and quite often what you'll find is that you go in with a set expectation, and then you start to move away from what you were expecting based on the fact that, yep, it can't do this, but it can do that. So understand what your not negotiables are. So every organisation will have a list of things that they feel are not negotiable. If the vendor can't produce it, then it's not the right vendor for them. Make sure that you're very clear in terms of what that is, and ensure that everyone that is representing your organisation through this software and vendor selection process understand that you're all on the same page and that you all believe in the same non-negotiables. And then I guess the other question to ask is, what makes their product unique that other products don't have or can't provide? So this will show you just how much in touch a vendor is to what's happening in the payroll market. If they can't tell you, it means that they're not keeping up with what their competitors are doing, right? And I would question in terms of how much technology advances they're going to be able to make if they're not aware of what's happening in the payroll space out in the market. All right, now the interesting part of the role of people in a payroll transformation. So there's multiple people aspects to consider when completing a payroll transformations, and we've tried to capture those underneath. So I guess one of the main things that I want to set out is that people are the most important asset in delivering a successful payroll transformation, and obviously that includes your current payroll team, which I would say are quite critical. Obviously HR, finance, IT, your vendors, and any consultants or project resources that you engage to help you through this payroll transformation piece. You need a really tight partnership between payroll, HR, finance, and IT. And I say this because of two reasons. One is obviously it's critical to ensure your end-to-end payroll solutions connected, and that it enables you to provide your business with the benefits that it's expecting to get from your payroll transformation. So one of the biggest things, payroll will know, we know what we're going to get. We know the benefits that we're going to get. As payroll managers or as payroll professionals, you need to be able to sell those benefits back to your business and get them to understand exactly what we're going to gain from doing such a big payroll transformation. And then obviously, how do you get in that buy-in from your senior management team on the importance of ensuring payroll is compliant and accurate, and the investment into a new payroll solution is a long-term investment that will ensure continued success and compliance. So one of the big driving factors, I think, when you do talk to your senior management about trying to look at a new payroll platform is reminding them about payroll compliance and ensuring that you are 100% compliant at all points in time. And I guess the environment that we're working in today probably makes that a little bit easier than it was probably 5 to 10 years ago. So, with the fact that you've got your Fair Work Commission and your regulators really scrutinising payroll and payroll processes, one of the big buy-ins, I guess, from a senior management perspective is reminding them that they don't want to be on the front page of the newspaper for not being compliant with payroll. So obviously, that the compliance piece is a real push factor when you're trying to do that senior management buy-in. And then obviously one of the biggest ones that I can't stress enough is a tight partnership between you and your selected vendor. This is to ensure, one, that you have a successful implementation, but it will also ensure that you've got a really strong relationship once you've gone live. The last thing you want to do is you don't want to damage the relationship during the implementation or during your payroll transformation project and find that you're already at loggerheads when you go live with your vendor, especially when it's a long term. Payroll projects are not something you do on a yearly basis, so you want to make sure that you do it right from the word go. And the people are what will make your payroll transformation successful or not, and I can't stress that enough. Cool, and then the last one obviously is the role of process in payroll transformation. So processes are an important part of a payroll transformation. To ensure a successful transformation, it's important for all current business processes to be questioned, and your people should be going into this with an open mind that payroll processes will change. And obviously some of the benefits that can be gained on payroll processes are defining a global or regional payroll process that's compliant in all locations, but that simplifies your payroll processing. One support model to ensure consistent use and reporting from your payroll system. And then automation of processes through integrations, which reduces the risks of deviations from a global regional standard. And I think one of the biggest points that I want to make out is, as a payroll manager, it's actually really hard to get your payroll team to actually think outside the box when it comes to their processes. So processes in a lot of organisations, especially payroll processes, have been around for a really long time. So change is not something that comes easy to a lot of payroll teams. A lot of it is, it's not broken, why fix it? It's not the fact that it's broken that we're fixing it, we're actually trying to make it better. So getting your team to go in not expecting that the new system that you're implementing is going to behave in the same way as your old system, making sure that they're thinking outside the box. So really getting them to think about all the pain points with their existing processes. And quite interestingly is quite often you'll have that discussion and they'll say, well, actually it's not as painful as what I make it out to be, right? So that's quite often just a reaction to the fact that change is coming for them. Redefining processes that touch payroll to enable simplification. So, you know, when you're looking at doing a payroll transformation, quite often it'll mean revisiting your integrations between different platforms. It's an opportunity for you to actually redefine those and look to see if you can actually make some of your integrations, whether that's between your HR system and your payroll system or your payroll system and your finance system, whether you can actually make some of those integrations a lot more simplified than what they are today. So if you have very complex integrations, your payroll transformation is a great opportunity to revisit those and see whether you can simplify them. And obviously, as I've touched on before, questioning current processes and whether these serve your organisation. A payroll transformation provides a great opportunity for you to question your current processes and streamline these as much as you possibly can. Role of technology in a payroll transformation. So does your payroll system integrate with your existing HR and finance systems, and do you have the opportunity to streamline any current integrations? I touched on those before, and obviously, you know, when you are looking at the role of technology, there's multiple things that you're going to be looking at, and an integrated technology platform is obviously one of the big drivers. Does your payroll technology enable your employees to perform their roles to the best of their ability? So really question the technology you're bringing into your payroll team and ensuring that your payroll team will be able to do their jobs to the best of their ability with the new platform. And does your technology support your working environment? So obviously, you know, nowadays organisations are looking more and more at flexible working arrangements with their employees. So, you know, does your environment and your payroll platform allow for things like remote access, flexible working, access via apps and mobile devices for them to enable them to do their jobs remotely? And then what automation it will provide to allow mundane tasks to be automated, enriching the employee experience. So, you know, quite often this will be tagged to your self-service portals for your employees, but also look in terms of automation from a payroll processing perspective. So, you know, is there simple data entry that your payroll team are currently doing that doesn't need to be done? So, you know, can you automate some of that data entry? Can you actually look to integrate some of that data directly into your new payroll platform so that you don't need to worry about your payroll teams doing these mundane tasks? All right, so now I'm going to pass on to Rajiv, who's going to go through the technology benefits. Sorry, I'm going to do this slide and then I'm going to pass it on. So obviously expected business benefits from a technology transformation. Flexibility, so you want your system to be as flexible and your technology to be as flexible as it possibly can, because obviously payroll is a changing world. Our rules and regulations and our legislation changes on at least a yearly basis, if not more often than that, and you want your payroll platform to be flexible to deal with those changes. Obviously, like I've already touched upon quite a few times today, is compliance. That's an expected benefit, business benefit. Advanced reporting is another benefit that you would want from your technology transformation. And then the ability to deal with complex payrolls and payroll calculations. Automation. So obviously, you know, the risk technology in place. And then the ability to scale up without major reinvention of your technology. So that's another important piece. You don't want to have to be reinventing your technology every time you're looking to scale up within your organisation, or when your organisation goes through changes such as restructures and so on. The last thing you want to be doing is reinventing your technology at every point in time that the business changes. And now I will pass on to Rajiv, who will take you through the technology piece.
Thanks, Val. And before I move on to what I'll be presenting to you, if you have any question, please put them in the chat window. I know Val made a great presentation and there's a lot of insights and pearls of wisdom, but if you have questions, please put them through. So taking off from where Val left in terms of benefits of technology as a buyer that you would expect, let me pick it up from the platform point of view, that when you are into payroll transformation initiative, why platform matters. Okay. So first of all, you want a technology so that technology should not matter to you. So which means you need to be current with technology without making an effort to remain current. And that is why cloud as a platform matters. Then if you are in a multi-country payroll transformation initiative, and you would have heard Val say that what kind of advantages you can get if you go on a single platform for multiple countries. The order of simplification could be really huge. So that is why from a platform point of view, a single platform for multiple countries matters. You also heard a lot about compliance and control. Now, a lot of times organizations are required to devise a lot of manual controls which sit outside the system, and they need to be audited through procedure compliance audit. What if your platform enables all the compliance and control, and system can run audits on any possible non-compliance? So when you look for platform, you have to investigate really closely that how far the platform offers that compliance and control. Obviously, accuracy is the very reason why payroll as a function has to be there. Otherwise, everybody could have paid themselves on their own, right? So you really want that as a standard outcome, goes without saying. And also from a platform point of view, traceability. So from source to the final value, platform should allow you to trace it. Should anything ever go wrong or seem to go wrong. Another important reason in payroll transformation increasingly is payroll is all about employees getting paid on time accurately and with a positive experience. So how far technology is, the platform is enabling that user experience part is also really important. And last but not the least, payroll functions in tandem with a lot of input data from various other sources. It is your HRIS, it is your time and attendance system. There could be a separate system for handling bonuses and incentives, your CRM system. So, and likewise on the downstream side, it has to meet stakeholder needs, finance stakeholder needs by transferring the data accurately and with adequate details. So all these data transfer have to be seamless for payroll to really perform. And that is why from a platform point of view, it is really important that how evolved is the platform in delivering this. The first one I'll pick up from a Ramco's standpoint, that is part of our starting vision, that we are not looking at country-specific separate payroll products. We have built a single platform for delivering payroll outcomes which are compliant and accurate across 45 countries, and we are growing that. And that delivers a tremendous leverage to our clients who have taken this platform for carrying out multi-country payroll transformation. Now, moving on, in terms of what advantages, some of these are fairly obvious. You get a single source of truth. You can use platform to achieve consistent and optimized business operations. It is much harder if you are on different technology in different countries to achieve the same level of consistency. So a single platform across multiple countries will allow you that. And of course, the operating model itself, you can achieve a single operating model because your operating model is built into the platform in a significant way. And then reporting and analytics, because you have a single source of data, then reporting and analysis is that much more efficient. Similarly, improved visibility and transparency in real time. You are not required to extract data from multiple sources to produce the visibility that is desired. And With all of this, you can expect much better payroll outcomes. Now, one of the important things that Val mentioned, and I want to take that in the context of data. So one of the points Val made, that how can payroll become a partner to business, right? How can payroll become a strategic function than a transactional function? I think today there's a great opportunity in terms of leveraging the data to achieve this. Now, data can help in a variety of ways. And if you look at payroll data, it is a rich source of a mountain of data. Apart from your process payroll data, you have bonus and incentive data. If you're paying employees expense through payroll, then you have that data. You have timesheet data. You have leave data. You have a lot of employee compensation details. So all of that makes itself a kind of rich source for different stakeholders to benefit tremendously. So, and we'll also talk about how this data will lead to achieving some intelligent outcome through application of AI and ML. But first and foremost, your ability to service your stakeholders with insight as a result of this single source of data is the very reason you should look at payroll transformation slightly differently. The first one I'll pick up is, with this data available in the payroll platform, a lot of intelligence can be achieved. In the context of payroll though, let me pick up a couple of those points. Apart from validations and things like recommending the best and most optimal options, I would say that preventing damage. So payroll is a lot about compliance and error detection. So this source of data with application of AI and ML can achieve significant outcome that which otherwise achieving that manually would be so difficult. And I'll come to that with the help of an example. Similarly, a lot of predictive outcomes can be achieved with the rich data that we have in a payroll platform. So let me take an example here. Just give a second. I think it has just moved on to. It has just gone on to. Just apologies. Just give a second. Slide transition has. Okay, apologies. So reconnecting on this, we talked about application of AI and ML. Let me take an example. So take a scenario that you have 50,000 employees for which you are doing a payroll transformation project across countries, across different business entities. And on an average, you have 200 pay components. That amounts to 10 million pay components across that employee headcount. Now, if you were to manually discover discrepancies, every month it is a mammoth task to run across spreadsheets, across countries and achieve that. Consider this now, on a single platform, when you have data for all the countries, you apply AI and ML techniques, very simple and now becoming quite mainstream. You can achieve any anomaly detection well in time to ensure that you remain accurate and compliant. And that is a huge outcome that is technology led and technology assisted. So I've just shown you a snapshot where we have applied outlier detection using isolation forest. And here's an example that how easily and visually you can run through those 10 million records, and it can simply highlight where your outliers are. Now, what do you do with the outlier is a choice that you can make, but at least the part one of the exercise of identifying outlier is completely platform driven. That itself is a very significant outcome. This can also get into the realm of predicting certain outcomes. For example, based on the past history of exceptions, the platform can start predicting what kind of exceptions that you may expect, although you don't want them. But the point is, if somebody is able to alert you well in advance, predict the kind of exceptions you can get, whether it is exception in your time and attendance data or leave data, you are much better off handling such a large and complex situation. The other element that when I spoke about why platform matters, you recall, is importance of user experience in achieving some of the transformation goals. And also it relates to, with improved employee engagement with respect to payroll, payroll as a function starts becoming more strategic and less transactional. So on that note, from a platform point of view, we believe that voice is going to be new user interface. People are going to interact with payroll system, whether it is for self-service or payroll processing teams themselves in inquiring about the data and anomalies. They can start using voice, and we have already been delivering some use cases using voice. Another element from a platform point of view has been around automation and how we can achieve compliance and accuracy, compliance and control in a paperless way. So it starts with automated business process layer across different countries or different entities. You heard Val say that even if you can define a standard business process, if you are on a same platform, then executing the same business process in the same way becomes far more easier. Then another important element is governance in terms of data governance or transactional history and audit, or even seamless drilling down to last level of detail. Since your source of data is same, then achieving this becomes a lot easy and automated. And that leads to automated, consistent, compliant, and enhanced accuracy. So as a platform, when you look at platform, you have to look at whether the platform is positioning you for the digital age and the demands of business and stakeholders from the technology that you are choosing. And one of the elements that we have repeatedly heard Val say is about compliance and risk, and reduction in risk as a result of these benefits from platform is a quite obvious one. So from a platform point of view, there are a lot more that we are working on and have been delivering. If you talk about frictionless computing, then voice, I mentioned voice or chatbots. We have delivered this where employee engagement can dramatically improve because there are fewer barriers to interaction, and that is why we call it frictionless computing. We have also gone into facial recognition based business process automation, particularly if it is about time tracking. Other thing you heard us say was one unified platform and something that can connect your entire ecosystem to really ensure a seamless business process execution, right from automating the data transfer from your HRIS into payroll and from payroll out to other systems. Payroll compliance and coverage across those 45 countries. And imagine a situation where you want to have payroll as a managed service. Now, unless all these fundamentals are bedded down on a single platform, trying to achieve payroll as managed service on a disparate process-based, disparate technology is much harder act to get. From a technology provider point of view, we have considered that also as something that platform needs to deliver. And we talked about infusing intelligence into payroll through AI and ML based capabilities. I think with this, we come to the end of what we wanted to talk to you about platform and technology and where it plays a part and what does the future look like from a platform standpoint. We welcome your question now.
All right, thank you very, very much, Rajiv, and I'd say a special thank you to Valerie as well. I think we've seen some fantastic insights from what really it does take to bring about a large payroll transformation, and also some of the other platform capabilities that will help you support you in that process. What I'd like to do now, because we are running a little bit short of time, is to move straight into the Q&A session. I have a number of questions that have been asked throughout the session, but please, any others there, please keep coming. If we can't get through them all today, what we will do is to endeavour to get those back to you as well. So what I'd like to do now is to really ask a couple of questions that have come through. So really, one of the questions is, how can payroll leaders ensure that payroll moves away from being a transactional to more of a strategic business function? Valerie, perhaps that's a question you can answer.
Sure, no problem. So I think one of the biggest things that as payroll professionals that we can do to move away from, I guess, that transactional viewpoint to more of a strategic leader viewpoint is to actually engage with our business. So build those relationships with your senior stakeholders or your key stakeholders within your business. Most payroll professionals in an organisation will know who their key stakeholders are. What you need to do is build that relationship with them and get them to understand that you're there to assist, you're there to help them out. You're also there to provide the business with some guidance. So I guess it's not an easy process. You actually have to, I guess, build their confidence in your ability and in the payroll team's ability. Get them to understand that you want to partner with them. You want to be able to share the information with them so that they can make strategic decisions. And then I find that once you've done that, it becomes a natural progress that they will engage with you when they're looking to make changes. So quite often I find that in an organisation, once I've built that relationship, and in some organisations it's taken 6 months, in some organisations it's taken 12 months, quite often you need to kind of prove yourself as you go along. So, you know, openly sharing information as much as you possibly can. In quite a few of my previous organisations, I actually started doing things like monthly payroll statistics where I showed the business how many transactions we were processing, the value of those transactions, and some of the business processes that could be improved to try and minimise, I guess, the issues that we were seeing come through. So, you know, being able to kind of openly share that, quite often it'll feel as a payroll professional you're giving 150% of your time to the business and you're getting nothing in return, but it does pay dividends. And I suggest that you continue on that path and you make sure that you really have those strong relationships so that people buy into the viewpoint that you have, that you can be a strategic partner to the business.
All right, thanks, Valerie. And to build on that previous question, one of the questions came through was also asked, how can innovation really help in technology, and what sort of innovation really becoming more strategic? Rajiv, perhaps you want to answer that one?
Sure, James. I think we did touch upon a bit on that. Most important thing, I think, most important strategic asset that payroll has is data today. And leveraging that data to bring payroll to the center of business is not that difficult if the platform really is your single source of truth. Consider this, that in many large businesses, payroll costs are very significant cost to running a business. Consider manpower planning for future of business. The data is there in payroll to really do that kind of business planning. We also spoke about how platform innovation can improve employee engagement as far as payroll as a service is concerned. Now, delivering a superior experience to employee will directly improve employee engagement, and I'm sure a lot of stakeholders in HR and finance, for these reasons, will be more receptive to listening to the strategic importance of payroll. So a lot of conversations can start happening if you leverage data, which is an outcome of a capable platform, a single source of truth. Apart from a lot of innovation, we spoke about voice and other things that are available today to improve employee engagement. So there's a lot today where technology can really take payroll as a function to the center stage.
All right, thank you, Rajiv. Another question has come in. Do you integrate with the with Workday? Perhaps Rajiv, you want to handle that one?
Sure. Perhaps we couldn't talk about it a lot, but yes, our approach to any integration is to really ensure that it remains current in terms of technology. So with to Workday itself, we are using PG, best integration, which is what Workday has come out last year as the best practice for integrating with Workday as a platform. So yes, that is what we do with respect to Workday. The PG best integration that we have, and that is what we propose.
Thank you, Rajiv. Another question for Valerie, and probably a little bit different. Basically, Valerie, can you share any examples of where maybe an organisation is scaling down the legacy product instead of getting a new one? Do you have any examples of that approach?
I don't particularly have an example where I've been in an organisation where they have scaled down and I guess reduced their product line. The only one would be, I guess, the one probably closest is Credit Suisse. Now, it wasn't actually a scale down, but what we did was we actually moved away from having 9 payroll vendors to having 1 payroll vendor across our APAC region. So obviously it was a scale down in terms of the amount of vendors that we were using, not so much of a headcount scale down or a regional landscape scale down. But obviously there's some huge benefits in obviously looking to move and to wrap up some of those prior vendor relationships we had, especially we were in quite a lot of small countries. So, they're quite unique. Quite a lot of those payroll vendors were doing our payrolls manually on spreadsheets and so on. And a lot of the times it was because we required to have a payroll vendor within country. So to be able to kind of move away, I guess, from 9 vendors to 1, it was a bit of a scale down for us from a vendor perspective, not so much, I guess, from an organisational size perspective. I've obviously been in organisations where we've sold off entities. And obviously, whenever you sell off an entity, there are different processes that you will go through. One of those, I guess, was BNP Paribas, where we obviously sold off part of our organisation. That meant we had a reduction in headcount quite dramatically. And then we made a decision that it was time to actually look at our payroll and HR platform, which were one platform, to make sure that it was actually cost effective for us. We were on a very expensive payroll platform at that point in time, which was great when we had thousands and thousands of headcount, but the minute our headcount went under 1,000 employees, we then had to really question whether it was the most cost-effective platform for us in that organisation at that point in time.
Sure, thanks, Valerie. Some good insights there. Probably another one for you, Valerie. So one of the areas that have come up lately is that of the payroll overpayments and underpayments have obviously been in the news quite a bit. So what sort of processes can help really an organisation help to minimise the fraud and to minimise or increase compliance, do you think? Any additional insights on that?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that an organisation can look at is obviously having a separate payroll compliance team, right? So a team that looks at, your payroll compliance, looks at system compliance, obviously looks at the payroll reports, tracking those overpayments. So that's quite often a really good way to see what's actually causing those overpayments, right? Is it actually a processing issue? Is it more of a business understanding? Is it a workflow issue? Quite often, when you do have self-service and technology, a lot of it is then manager or people manager dependent. So, ensuring that you're able to pick up where those issues are coming from and having that engagement with that part of the business. So again, it comes down to that relationship piece. So quite often in an organisation, if you've got really strong relationships, you can pick up the phone or you can email the business and let them know that you're seeing a consistent, you might be seeing, for example, a manager who's consistently forgetting to put in their termination workflows or approving termination workflows, which means obviously it's not coming to payroll, and therefore you're obviously not stopping somebody's pay on their last day of employment, they're being overpaid, and then you're doing some recoveries. So being able to provide that information back and being able to track that from a payroll team perspective is quite hard. In quite a lot of organisations, it'll mean manually having to keep track of these things and being able to really scale back and go, okay, are we seeing a consistent pattern within parts of the business? Are we consistently seeing the same thing happening over and over again? Do we need to do a bit more education with our people managers or our HR business partners to let them know, what's happening? And I guess coming in with some sort of solution as well, because it's great to be able to highlight an issue, but if you can't provide them with some guidance around what a possible solution could be, that also then makes it really hard because quite often they won't know how to go about making some of those changes. And I guess, if you can make the business responsible for those things and they understand that it's going to hit their bottom line, that obviously gives you the buy-in for them to change some behaviours, because quite often overpayments are a behavioural thing more so than an actual processing piece. Making sure that senior management are aware of what that trend looks like over you know, months, years. The longer that you can report on it, I guess the more consistent you can kind of see how that data is looking, and being able to show so, you know, what show that you are being able to minimise some of those key issues you're facing today.
Okay. Thanks, Valerie. I think we've come to the time now. So again, I'd like to thank everyone very much for their participation today, and I'd like to especially thank the two panelists, Valerie Flight and Rajiv Singh, for their great insights and an overview of the approach and the different processes to undertake the large payroll transformation. We will be making this recording available. We will also tend to get those responses back to the additional questions that have come through. But at this stage, I think thank you again very much, everybody, and that's Ramco signing off. Thank you.